If you could have a better life, if you could chance the circumstances of your birth, the opportunities available to you, would you be willing to aid us in our time of need? The matron offered. What? I don't. I stumbled over my own words. We cannot bring you directly into our own reality, the matriarch told me. But we could place you into another, where you could find a way to make your way into ours. It is not an easy task we ask of you, the maiden cautioned. But the goal is worthy, and the new life we gift to you will grant the opportunity that you had never had in your past life. You would be reborn, the matron explained. Your mind, your knowledge, your personality, would be brought to a new world, a new life. You would not come out of this, unchanged, however. Well, that's a thing, I thought to myself. Yeah, if we're a sum of our experiences, then being born in an entirely different life would have to cause some changes, right? I was still kind of wrapping my head around the fact that I had died, and instead of passing on to heaven or whatever, I had ended up with my afterlife interrupted by a literal goddess. Still, I had always kind of thought that regardless of what the afterlife brought, the purpose of our mortal life was to learn and experience, and I hadn't quite done enough of that yet by the time that big old bolt of lightning struck me down. On the other hand, what kind of new life were they offering me, where I would have the chance to help end a cycle of death that had been going on for, about 40 million years in their reality? A reality that I had only ever heard of through a trilogy of video games? And on yet another hand, wait, that's too many hands, especially since I didn't even have one right now. You know, being a bodiless spirit and all. I noticed the goddesses were all staring at me, somehow giving off an air of both expectation and infinite patience at the same time. Will I have any say in the life I will be born into? I asked them. You will, the matron agreed. As long as it is suitable, the matriarch cautioned. Of course. Well, time to think of what I would need, since we all knew that there was no way I would give up a golden opportunity like this. Knowing what I do of the Mass Effect universe, I knew that I would have to be a skilled fighter. Of course, saving the universe requires more than just fighting skill. I would also require a level of stealth that I had never possessed in my past life. And a body that would be able to support that skill, and not fall apart around me like my old one had. More importantly, if I was going to have to start in another reality, and make my way into theirs, I would have to start off somewhere that would allow that in the first place. That narrowed it down quite a bit, to be honest. Are other realities like yours? I asked them. I mean, I know of your reality through a video game. Are there realities that match things like books, movies, comics, things like that? Very many, the maiden agreed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I enjoy looking at the ones where. The matriarch forcefully cleared her throat, cutting off her excited youngest counterpart, causing the maiden's cheeks to flush lavender. If I still had a face, I would be fighting to keep a smile off of it. Sinking deep into thought, I weighed the pros and cons of the many different options that were now flowing through my mind. One of the reoccurring themes was that saving the universe wouldn't be up to just me. I would need some way to bring a force multiplier, to help other people fight against the Reapers, to give a chance for organic life to continue beneath their relentless onslaught. The three aspects of a theme were exceptionally patient with me as I reviewed everything that I remembered of what I had watched and read over my years, and which of those different stories could allow me to gain what I needed. I'd need to somehow get access to technology that could potentially be made in the Mass Effect universe, that wasn't just a copy of the Prothean technology that everyone in that Milky Way galaxy used. Technology that can be used to help tip the balance to our favor. Personal strength is all well and good, but being born as a ninja from the Naruto reality would only really help me, since I couldn't train anyone else how to use chakra if they weren't born with it. Likewise, being born in the Harry Potter universe, I could potentially learn their form of magic, which again I wouldn't be able to teach anyone else. My mind froze for a moment as I had a sudden thought. I knew exactly where, and when, I wanted to start off in my new life. The question of who would depend on how a theme answered my next few questions. Will I be able to pick when the memories of my past life wake up in my new one? I asked them. The goddess glanced at each other, no words needing to be spoken, before turning back to me and nodding in agreement. Awesome, okay, I muttered to myself, contemplating my next question. I get to choose who I am reborn as, right? Within limits, the matron advised me. If your absence in that reality would cause it undue harm, we would be ill-advised to honor the request. That shouldn't be a problem, I agreed. Okay, what now? Okay, assuming hopefully that there are a potentially infinite number of realities, altered by the different choices made throughout the timelines, I said, trying to sell this idea not only to them, but to myself as well. Can I choose when I am born, so that I wake up with my memories at a time and place of my choosing? There was a long moment of silence, as the three aspects of a theme conferred with each other. This was a bit of a gamble, but if they agreed to my idea, then I could not only help them out immensely, but I could also fulfill a couple of old fantasies of mine from my old life. As this moment of silence stretched on, I began to worry that I had asked too much of the goddesses, and that they might try to find some other, worthier soul, to take my place. That depends, the matriarch cautioned me. What do you have in mind? If you could have a better life, if you could chance the circumstances of your birth, the opportunities available to you, would you be willing to aid us in our time of need? The matron offered. What? I don't. I stumbled over my own words. We cannot bring you directly into our own reality, the matriarch told me, but we could place you into another, where you could find a way to make your way into ours. It is not an easy task we ask of you, the maiden cautioned. But the goal is worthy, and the new life we gift to you will grant the opportunity that you had never had in your past life. You would be reborn, the matron explained. Your mind, your knowledge, your personality, would be brought to a new world, a new life. You would not come out of this, unchanged, however. Well, that's a thing, I thought to myself. Yeah, if we're a sum of our experiences, then being born in an entirely different life would have to cause some changes, right? I was still kind of wrapping my head around the fact that I had died, and instead of passing on to heaven or whatever, I had ended up with my afterlife interrupted by a literal goddess. Still, I had always kind of thought that regardless of what the afterlife brought, the purpose of our mortal life was to learn and experience, and I hadn't quite done enough of that yet by the time that big old bolt of lightning struck me down. On the other hand, what kind of new life were they offering me, where I would have the chance to help end a cycle of death that had been going on for, about 40 million years in their reality? A reality that I had only ever heard of through a trilogy of video games? And on yet another hand, wait, that's too many hands, especially since I didn't even have one right now. You know, being a bodiless spirit and all. I noticed the goddesses were all staring at me, somehow giving off an air of both expectation and infinite patience at the same time. Will I have any say in the life I will be born into? I asked them. You will, the matron agreed. As long as it is suitable, the matriarch cautioned. Of course. Well, time to think of what I would need, since we all knew that there was no way I would give up a golden opportunity like this. Knowing what I do of the Mass Effect universe, I knew that I would have to be a skilled fighter. Of course, saving the universe requires more than just fighting skill. I would also require a level of stealth that I had never possessed in my past life. And a body that would be able to support that skill, and not fall apart around me like my old one had. More importantly, if I was going to have to start in another reality, and make my way into theirs, I would have to start off somewhere that would allow that in the first place. That narrowed it down quite a bit, to be honest. Are other realities like yours? I asked them. I mean, I know of your reality through a video game. Are there realities that match things like books, movies, comics, things like that? Very many, the maiden agreed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I enjoy looking at the ones where. The matriarch forcefully cleared her throat, cutting off her excited youngest counterpart, causing the maiden's cheeks to flush lavender. If I still had a face, I would be fighting to keep a smile off of it. Sinking deep into thought, I weighed the pros and cons of the many different options that were now flowing through my mind. One of the reoccurring themes was that saving the universe wouldn't be up to just me. I would need some way to bring a force multiplier, to help other people fight against the Reapers, to give a chance for organic life to continue beneath their relentless onslaught. The three aspects of a theme were exceptionally patient with me as I reviewed everything that I remembered of what I had watched and read over my years, and which of those different stories could allow me to gain what I needed. I'd need to somehow get access to technology that could potentially be made in the Mass Effect universe, that wasn't just a copy of the Prothean technology that everyone in that Milky Way galaxy used. Technology that can be used to help tip the balance to our favor. Personal strength is all well and good, but being born as a ninja from the Naruto reality would only really help me, since I couldn't train anyone else how to use chakra if they weren't born with it. Likewise, being born in the Harry Potter universe, I could potentially learn their form of magic, which again I wouldn't be able to teach anyone else. My mind froze for a moment as I had a sudden thought. I knew exactly where, and when, I wanted to start off in my new life. The question of who would depend on how a theme answered my next few questions. Will I be able to pick when the memories of my past life wake up in my new one? I asked them. The goddess glanced at each other, no words needing to be spoken, before turning back to me and nodding in agreement. Awesome, okay, I muttered to myself, contemplating my next question. I get to choose who I am reborn as, right? Within limits, the matron advised me. If your absence in that reality would cause it undue harm, we would be ill-advised to honor the request. That shouldn't be a problem, I agreed. Okay, what now? Okay, assuming hopefully that there are a potentially infinite number of realities, altered by the different choices made throughout the timelines, I said, trying to sell this idea not only to them, but to myself as well. Can I choose when I am born, so that I wake up with my memories at a time and place of my choosing? There was a long moment of silence, as the three aspects of a theme conferred with each other. This was a bit of a gamble, but if they agreed to my idea, then I could not only help them out immensely, but I could also fulfill a couple of old fantasies of mine from my old life. As this moment of silence stretched on, I began to worry that I had asked too much of the goddesses, and that they might try to find some other, worthier soul, to take my place. That depends, the matriarch cautioned me. What do you have in mind? If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.